Thanks very much, Jessamine. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my God, it happened. I was sitting down there and I thought, by the time I get up there, I'll remember everything I was meant to talk about. Okay, hello everybody, and thank you for the kind smiles. Thank you, that's very nice. My name is Pat Collins. I'm a lecturer in geography at the University of Galway, and I'm here today to talk about a few things, and I want to talk about them basically in three different parts. Okay, the third part I want to talk about is going under the title of I would have voted for Jackie Healy-Rae, and so should you have. The second part of it is Tim Cook owes me €4,361, and he owes that to you too. And then the first part is called Let's Get the Fuck Out of Portlaoise. I should just do a little asterisk there because I asked Jessamine, could I say fuck? And she said yes. And that's actually very liberating for what I do because I lecture a lot and I can't say fuck, even though I'm thinking, well, fuck, as in put your fucking phone down. And we all know you're from fucking Mayo. You don't have to wear the jersey just to prove it. Okay. Where was I? Oh, yes. Let's get the fuck out of Portlaoise. So when I was a young child, 18 months old, I turned to my father and I said, let's get the fuck out of Portlaoise. And he said, okay, great. And he did. Because see, what I knew then at that young age is I knew that the gig was up. The gig was up for Ireland. And Ireland's kind of on again, off again relationship with the rural, you know? The rural and the rural ideal, you know, going back to De Valera and the ladies dancing at the crossroads. Ireland has had this on again, off again relationship with the rural where it really wants to be rural, but then it looks at the urban and it's like the urban's very sexy. You know, it's like, yeah, no, that's the way to develop. You want to develop the urban. The rural is fine. You can take the rural home to your mother and introduce the rural and say, this is rural, but the urban is, you know, is the sexy one. And I knew this, so I said, let's get out of Portlaoise and let's get to Galway, the metropolis of Galway. So we moved to Galway in the 1970s, and we weren't the only ones. It was a city that doubled in size over the course of the 1970s. And, you know, we used to talk about this in the 1980s, that Galway was the fastest growing city in Europe. Yeah, thank you. And that's all what we all thought. I mean, it was bullshit, but I mean, don't worry about that, because I've been in at least 3 other cities that were also the fastest growing cities in Europe. But aside from that, but in the 1980s, it was a very particular time in Galway. I mean, it was very, like, you know, it was like the streets were either paved with, you know, silver or with shite, because it was, you know, there was great things going on and bad things going on. I remember being in 3rd class and my teacher, you know, standing up above and putting his hand down the middle of the room. He said, this half of the class is going to have to emigrate and this half of the class will get to stay here. And everybody in this side of the class was shit. I'd love to emigrate. And I was on that side of the class. But that was it. But then, you know, you had that and, you know, things were bad. But there was also kind of these, you know, like, you looked at the television and, you know, Dallas and Magnum PI and thinking, okay, things could be good. And then we got some of that in the form of digital computers. Anybody have a digital computers? Digital computers came to Galway and they set up here, and everybody knew people who worked in digital because they all had the new cars, and that was great, and it was great. I mean, and there was other things like the Ayr Square Shopping Centre and Corbett Court. I mean, have you seen the glass roof on the Ayr Square Shopping Centre? I mean, class. That's exactly what the medieval walls of Galway wanted. So that was it, yeah. Galway was becoming. Ireland was becoming. But then something happened in the early 1990s, and some of you in this audience might be too young to remember this, but we used to have things called news flashes, when they would stop the programming on television and have a news flash. And there was one in the early 1990s, and that news flash was about digital closing its manufacturing operation in Galway. It was our Diana moment in Galway. Should I test that one? Yeah, I mean, we were shocked, we were aghast, you know. Somebody didn't like us, and the Irish people, you know, we don't like when somebody didn't like us. And that was it. And it was big news. It was big news. And why was it big news? Well, it was big news because Ireland had made that gamble. And this is a gamble, and here I get very lectury about it, that goes all the way back to T.K. Whitaker. Anybody know T.K. Whitaker? Nothing to do with the lemonade. No, T.K. Whitaker is responsible for writing a report in 1959, imaginatively titled Economic Development. And that report was essentially our gamble. Our gamble is our future is betting on American corporations to come here and provide us with employment. And that's how we're going to industrialize. You might be working for an American corporation. It's okay. It's fine. And that's how we were going to do it, because we had tried industrialization in this country before. We had tried it. In fairness, we gave it a good go. The likes of Bord Shukra, great, sugar. Bord Namona, again, all imaginative titles. Matter of fact, there was a documentary I watched, I don't know if anybody saw it, about Bord Namona in the Midlands. So they're involved in peat production. So it's just essentially making energy out of shite, which is really what it is. Fascinating documentary, you know, where they talked about cutting-edge technologies, processing plants, etc., etc. But they interviewed the men, because it was mainly men that worked in these things, and you could see the interviewers trying to get them to relive, you know, this kind of moment of ingenuity, this kind of, you know, becoming of kind of Irish industrial epoch, and all they talked about the crack. The narrow-gauge railway, that was good. Oh, but the crack the lads had. The crack. Anyways, T.K. Whitaker obviously could see what was going on, the likes of Bord Namona, and said, these gobshites can't do anything, so we're going to get the Americans in to do the industrializing for Ireland. And we got this birth of this kind of very unique form of, dare I use the word, capitalism. But this is a paddy capitalism that we have here in Ireland and how we invoked it. So, you know, the American model, very simple, greed is good. The paddy capitalism model is you know yourself. That fella there doing very well for himself. That fella's not bastard. But I mean, very simply put, it was really easy. What do you do? 0% corporation tax, and that's it. You know, it really, there is no major mystery to it. But it's just you invite these in. It's go on. You will. No, you're fine. No, you will. And they did, and they came, and this was the one policy that successive governments have abided by. So much so that if you look at the amount of governments we've gone through since the 1960s, 70s, about 20 governments, nothing changes when we change governments. Nothing changes. And that's because we have universally subscribed to corporation tax as our way of developing this country. And so we had an Ireland that went very quickly from, you know, the absolute subscription to and full faith in Corpus Christi to the absolute full and zealous subscription to corporation tax. He said, I was a while working on that joke. You could see, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Jessamine said I just had to tell one joke, and I think that was just the one joke just there. And you say, okay, look, that's fine. And we come along and we develop as a country and we get people in and we do our Paddycapitalism thing. And one thing on that is in 1979, Intel came to County Kildare. And the Intel, you can imagine them with their big lapels going yada, 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 yada. You know, we've got loads of money. And the Irish going, ha ha. You know, we'll even name our housing estates Silicon Plains, which they've done, if you come and set up here. A really interesting thing is Intel went, yeah, fine. Then Intel hopped on a plane over to Scotland to see what Scotland had to offer them, only for the IDA, the guys in Ireland, to hop on the next plane over to Scotland and ensure and close the deal. And what that deal ended up as was the equivalent of £12,000 per employee in an Ireland where the average industrial wage was about £9,000. So that's what we were paying. That was our subscription. And you say, okay. Look, it was a gamble. It was a good bet. You know, we've developed a tech sector on the back of that. And you say, yes. But you get on to Tim Cook and 2015 and this very kind of strangely unique phenomenon of a European court ruling that Apple owes this country 13 billion euros, because even as bad as we are doing our corporation tax, even if you take all of the kind of back of the envelope notions that we have for actually judiciously taxing this kind of operation, even if you do that, you're still 13 billion short, Apple. 30 seconds after that ruling came in, an appeal was lodged. And you say, well, okay, Apple doesn't want to give 13 billion euros. The appeal was lodged by the Irish government. Because, no, we won't be taking that off you. We won't. Anyways, that's why Tim Cook owes me 4,613 euros, and he owes it to all of you too. Finally, and I'm running off of time here. Okay. Is this question that I would have as a geographer is, what kind of places, you're hoping I'm going to trip up on that. What kind of place does this make? You know, I mean, what kind of country does this make? And particularly, what kind of places does this result in? And I mean, it's fairly safe to see. We all know it. This is the Ireland we all recognize out our front doors. Is that T.K. Whitaker and his plan for industrial development has spread across veritably all policy making in this country. The way to do things in this country is to incentivize through lowering taxes. And we all know that. There's a joke in there about the tent, Fianna Fáil tent at the Galway races. That's below me and I won't make it. But it does. I mean, it does. And you look how the country has gone through this level of economic growth that it has gone through since the 1990s, and you kind of question, how has that money manifested itself physically in space and the places that we make? And well, the answer is not very fucking well at all. It is not very well at all. I've had the opportunity to go and talk to these tech companies. You know, you're kind of, oh my God, I'm going. And I remember saying to my girlfriend, now wife, I'm going to visit Microsoft, or I'm going to visit Dell. And you're thinking, oh, these dream factories, you know, oh my God, these are the cutting edge of technological development. And it's just off some roundabout in some industrial estate where everything's grey and, you know, there's no chimes or do when you walk into the Intel factory. It's all very boring. And then you look at, you know, the kind of most recent kind of arrivals in the form of Facebook, or what's their new name? fuckheads, yes, Meta, and Twitter, and they've obviously decided that their city centres, that's where they want to be. They want to be, the beating heart at where it's at. They are the urban sexy, and you see it, and it's glass and it's concrete, and it is directly related to this phenomenon that we all know and appreciate of a housing crisis, because that's what you do. That's what you do in cities when you bring these tech workers in, you pay these tech workers, and you then question how we end up in a rental crisis. So much so that another piece of work that I've done, which is try to map, the spatial distribution of technological innovation by taking metrics like employees with certain degrees and looking at their biographies, where they locate. This is how we can identify, the real cutting edge creative cities. Turns out the easiest metric to use is homelessness. I mean, that's what San Francisco and that's what Dublin share. So these are the kind of questions that drives me in terms of now of how does this stuff physically manifest itself in placemaking. And that's a key question that we have in this country, and in particular in this country, and I'm getting very lectury now at the moment, don't worry, I'll start the riot in a second, because this country is very particular, very second only to Victor Orban's Hungary in terms of the centralization. So we have ultimately just decided that the marketplace is responsible for making places. The marketplace is responsible for housing. And you say, okay, in a highly centralized place where 96% of the national budget is being decided on, the signatures are written by people in Dublin, you say, that's exactly why I'd vote for Jackie Healy-Rae, because the money isn't coming down here. And I know some of you might say I wouldn't give Galway City Council 20 euros and trust them to spend it properly. But what I would say is you get what you pay for. You do get what you pay for. So looking to the future and the future development of places, all I can think of is let's all just hope that under the duvet shenanigans of couples in Galway will lead to the genetic, and I defer to people in other parts of my university on this, but a genetic mixture that's a coincidence of arrogance, stupidity, brashness, boldness, and an unerring boundedness to their spatial context that will be spewed into the world and will run for TD in Galway and will essentially make the future for our places. Because that's the kind of system that we live in. And if we're not changing it, then that's the only reason why we'll all end up voting for the Jackie Healy-Raes. Thank you.